Good morning, Section A and Section D. Allow me to start the lecture discussion. For this morning, we'll discuss all about types of inorganic chemical reactions. After learning the names and then the formulas of inorganic compounds, may it be ionic, acids, or covalent compounds, you are now ready this time to write chemical equations or predict products of inorganic chemical reaction. So that would be our goal for this morning to tackle the four general types of inorganic chemical reactions. The fifth one listed, neutralization, this falls under the fourth type of inorganic chemical reaction. So letter A, neutralization, and also letter B, precipitation. This again falls under the type of chemical reaction double replacement or double displacement. Okay, so kindly take note of that. Now, before we start discussing the first type of inorganic chemical reaction, please take note that in any chemical equation, the substance that are being reacted or those substances or compounds or molecules reacted written on the left side before the arrow pointing to the right, we call these substances as reactants. Okay. And then the product are written, products or product, this are written on the right portion of the chemical equation. So this portion is the product side. The substances being formed after we react, substances or samples written on the left side of the chemical equation. So example, the products are, let's say, X and Y, or A, B. Okay, so let's make it AB na lang since the compound reacted on the reactant sides are specifically A and B. So to avoid confusion, let's make it A and B as the product being formed. Okay, so later we will be learning how to write chemical equation, and you will be learning what are the different types of inorganic chemical reactions. So for now, just know we have the reactant sides written on the left, then product sides written on the right after the arrow. Okay, after the arrow, products naman. So let's begin with the first type of inorganic chemical reaction. This is known as synthesis, or in other references, we call it direct union or simply combination reaction. That's why it's written there. Also known as direct combination reaction. Okay, so based on the term, this tells us that in the chemical reaction, a product is synthesized, a product is formed after we unite or combine substances. So sa definition, it's reflective to its definition. In this type of chemical reaction, you have two or more simpler substances. When they combine, you form one compound or one product. So you synthesized only one product or one compound. So that's the concept of this type of chemical reaction, synthesis. So example, the general formula A plus B on the reactant side. So the reactants are A and B, simple substances, A and B. And look at the product side, you only form one compound, okay, or one substance. So that's the concept of this type of chemical reaction. So let me give you a specific example. Let's say, sorry. let's say a simple substance of, for a while, huh? My slide exited. Let me share it again. Okay, so let me repeat. A specific example for a synthesis type of reaction. Let's say the simple substances being reacted on the reactant side are hydrogen gas, and we have this another simple substance, oxygen gas. Now, in the product side, we could synthesize one compound out of these two simple substances being reacted, and that could be water, H2O. So observe in the chemical equation, it only forms one compound or one product. Okay, let's have another example. Let's say nitrogen monoxide reacted to a gas, oxygen gas. This could as well form one compound, and that is nitrogen dioxide, the stable form or stable oxide form of nitrogen. Okay, so that's how you identify if it is a synthesis type of chemical reaction. Just look at the reactant side to that of the product side. So if the product side, you are just observing one compound formed, nothing else, then that's
So basically, sa lahat ng major natin,
next. Let's proceed to the second type of inorganic chemical reaction. We have decomposition. In decomposition, this is merely breakdown of substance. Breakdown or breaking, degradation. Breakdown or degradation. Diba? These are synonymous term for the word decomposition. Okay. Now, when I say decomposition, it has also other names. It can be referred to as analysis type of reaction. Okay, so again, in decomposition, we are simply breaking down a compound. So by definition, what happens in decomposition? A single reactant, it yields two or more simpler substances. So the exact opposite of the first type of inorganic chemical reaction I have presented earlier. So opposite siya ng synthesis. So in the composition, you have one compound, this time on the reactant side. Okay, on the reactant side. Now, after certain processes or decomposition reaction, breaking down of this one compound, one single compound, it forms two or more simpler substances. Okay, so kabaliktaran naman ng synthesis. So merely breaking down, solely breaking down of substances involved in this type of chemical reaction. So let's say, for example, the compound aluminum oxide, that this is an ionic compound, an example of a compound. If we break down this one single compound, we can produce its metal form and its non-metal equivalent. Okay, remember an ionic compound, that is simply a combination of a metal and a non-metal. So based on the chemical formula, the metal portion is the aluminum. So it will produce a solid aluminum, a metal aluminum, and the gas that could be formed or released if we break down the compound aluminum oxide would be the gas oxygen. Okay. So observe on the chemical reaction, you have one compound broken down into two products. So that's decomposition, decomposing, breaking down, degradation. Okay, so another example, let's say water. Water as a liquid, the liquid form of water, we can expose it to electric current. So under electrolysis nga process, we can also break down a sample of water, and that will form simpler substances, and that involves water, hydrogen gas rather, and oxygen gas. Ayan. So these are good examples of chemical breakdowns of substances. Okay. Now a simple type or subtype of decomposition reaction is combustion. Maybe you are familiar with this type of chemical reaction. Ang combustion, again, it is a type of chemical breakdown of substances, although this is specifically an organic type of reaction. Why organic? Because this specific type of reaction only occurs among organic compounds. So it is occurs among hydrocarbon compounds. When you say hydrocarbon compounds, they are considered as organic. Any compounds containing carbon and hydrogen, kapag magkasama sila, carbon and hydrogen in a particular compound, we classify that compound as organic. So for all of the organic compounds, they undergo combustion type of reaction. Okay? And again, combustion falls under this general or bigger umbrella, no? General type of chemical reaction. Ang nangyayari din sa combustion is also decomposition of a particular compound. Particularly those compounds broken down into pieces, broken down into simpler substances are hydrocarbon compounds. So let me give you an example. By the way, ang combustion, this uses, or the process uses oxygen gas. Okay, oxygen gas in the reactant side. Okay, so it uses oxygen gas just to break down. Kumbaga siya yung reagent, chemical reagent na needed to cause combustion, to break down a particular hydrocarbon compound. So let's specify a good example of a hydrocarbon compound. Let's say methane. Methane is the simplest organic compound. So it contains one carbon and four atoms of hydrogen. So this is a good example of hydrocarbon compound. And again, hydrocarbon compounds undergo combustion type of reaction. So meaning to say, in order to break down methane as a hydrocarbon compound via combustion, we need oxygen gas. So on the reactant side, it should be exposed, the hydrocarbon compound should be exposed to oxygen gas. Now, the product of combustion reaction in hydrocarbon compounds will depend on the sufficiency of oxygen supply. Again, the product here will depend on the enough supply of oxygen. So let's say, for instance, in this reaction, I have written the oxygen supply is enough, so sufficient. So I will write it sufficient, yung oxygen supply. So if that is the case, then the combustion will happen completely, or we call that as complete combustion. And in complete combustion, the products are the following. It's constant carbon dioxide and water, nothing else. Okay, so if you observe in a chemical reaction, the given on the reactant side contains carbon and hydrogen, or we call it hydrocarbon, and then it is exposed to oxygen gas. Tapos it is written on the reaction, it has been specified na enough yung supply ng oxygen, then it's a complete type of combustion. So the product is always carbon dioxide and water. So that's complete combustion. Now, another type of combustion, okay, is we call it incomplete. Let me write it. So we also have what we call incomplete type of combustion. When is it incomplete? Again, it depends on the sufficiency of oxygen supply. So whenever in the reaction, the hydrocarbon compound is exposed to insufficient oxygen supply, then expect that the combustion will happen incompletely. Meaning to say, not all the carbon present in that compound will be burned because of insufficiency of oxygen supply. Okay? And therefore, the products here, instead of carbon dioxide, it will be replaced by a fatal gas, carbon monoxide. It's a fatal gas. Okay, ang carbon monoxide plus a carbon soot, carbon traces, no? There will be black kumbaga traces of carbon. Diba? Yung carbon is color black in nature. And of course, water will still be part of the product kapag incomplete combustion. So kindly take note of the difference when it is complete combustion, when it is incomplete combustion, and what are the products produced kapag complete versus that of incomplete combustion. Okay? You will know in the laboratory, you can easily identify if you perform combustion reaction, you can identify if this incomplete combustion after you ignite, for instance, or undergo flammability test for that particular hydrocarbon. If in the evaporating dish, there will be traces of black spots, okay, or mga black powders, those are the soot, okay, or the carbon soot. Okay, so that's incomplete combustion. Hindi lahat ng carbon nasunog kasi insufficient yung oxygen supply in the chemical reaction. Okay, so that's all about combustion. It is an organic type of chemical reaction, but again, it falls under breakdown type of reaction. Meaning, what happens here is also decomposing a compound. Okay, one reactant, we decompose it producing two or more products. So that's the concept of decomposition. Okay, so during exams, if you are asked to identify products of combustion, just know this. Okay, just recall the products between complete and incomplete combustion. But with regards to this specific example, if ionic compound or let's say covalent compound has been decomposed, I will not ask you anymore to predict product kasi this requires knowledge on the stable forms of compounds. You should know what would be the stable oxides of that particular element will be probably formed after you decompose that compound. So it requires kumbaga higher knowledge on the different and a lot of compounds, their stable forms, etc. Okay, so I will not ask you questions predicting products for decomposing ionic and covalent compound like this. Examples. The same with synthesis. Okay, you will not be predicting also products under synthesis type of reaction. Okay, again, the reason this requires knowledge on stable forms of different compounds. Okay, again. For this two type of reactions, just familiarize or kumbaga learn how to identify when it is synthesis, when it is decomposition. Okay, so there might be question na given yung complete chemical reaction, you just have to identify if it is synthesis or a decomposition type of reaction. Okay, so that's how you study this first two types of chemical reaction. No need to learn how to predict the products. Just know how to identify if it is synthesis versus if it is decomposition. For combustion, it's quite easy to predict the product kasi it's constant. If it is complete, carbon dioxide and water are the products. If it is incomplete, replace carbon dioxide with carbon monoxide and carbon soot. That's it. Okay. Sige, let's have the third type of inorganic chemical reaction. This is single replacement or also known as single displacement. So based on the term, you have a single element, one element which may occur as diatomic molecule or as monoatomic na element. So pwede yan. So one element, it attempts to replace other element in a compound. So that's single displacement. So let's say, for example, in the given general formula, you have a single element A. Okay, single element A. Again, this may occur as an atom. Pwede siya an atom, meaning single atom, or pwede din naman siya, diba, diatomic molecule. That's how we define an element. Okay. If it is reacted to a compound and it is able to displace or kumbaga replace one element from that compound, then that is a single replacement type of reaction. Okay, try to observe what happens to this general chemical equation. The single element tries to it displaces the element B from the compound BX. So as it displace or replace the element B from BX, the compound formed now is AX, and the single element on the product side would now be the substance B. Kumbaga sinipa ni sample A yung element B sa compound na BX. Okay, so single displacement. That's it. Now, in this type of reaction, this may happen in two ways. Okay, pwede yung sample A, for instance, this could be a metal. So you know already what are examples of metal. In the periodic table, those elements on the leftmost part of the periodic table, those are metal. So in a single replacement, possible that a metal could be the single element in the chemical reaction or on the reactant side. So if this is a metal as the single element, what it replaces in an ionic compound is, of course, the metal portion. Okay, let's recall the order how we write chemical formula of ionic compound. Recall that cation comes first, followed by anion. Diba? That's the order how we write chemical formula of ionic compound. So the cation here is, it came from metal. And then the anion form, that is from non-metal form. Okay? So since I have emphasized here that sample A is a metal, so during single displacement, it will replace or displace the metal portion of that ionic compound. So that would be B. That's why look at the chemical reaction. Yung B is now on the product side. The B is now the single element, and what replaces the spot or position of B previously is now the atom A. So you will now produce AX plus B. Okay? Another way, single replacement may also happen if this is a non-metal. Possible din na yung single element is in a non-metal form. So what are examples of non-metal? Non-metals are found here on the upper right portion of the periodic table. So those includes oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, bromine, iodine, any elements found here, upper portion of the periodic table, upper right portion. So possible na in a single replacement, this single element could be a non-metal. So if any case that a non-metal is the single element in the reactant side, this time, it will replace the non-metal portion of that ionic compound. So this time, from Bx, so example A, let me write it again, A plus Bx. So this time, it will replace the kumbaga, position of X in the compound Bx. Okay, so you will produce the product X and BA. Okay, so I hope you got the point here. So it will depend on the single element. What is the single element being reacted to that ionic compound? If it is a metal, it will just displace the metal portion. Okay, kaya you have to produce AX plus B on the first general equation. On the bottom equation, chemical equation, since non-metal is specified as sample A, the single element, so it will displace here the non-metal form or the anion portion of ionic compound. Okay? Pag displace, pag sipa niya sa X, yung X na yung single element sa product side, kaya yung isang compound na mapoproduce as product would be BA. Okay? Are you following? Can you show a thumbs up if you understand the concept? Okay. Now, please take note the important reminder written below. This single replacement only happens if the sample A is more reactive to the element that it tries to displace. So, dapat mangyayari lang yung single displacement if more reactive itong mga single element, yung gustong mag-replace. Okay? That's the time you will produce a more stable product. So how do we know if that single element, may it be metal or non-metal, is more reactive than the other element in the compound na gusto niyang i-displace? So we refer to this reactivity series of metals. This tells us the order of reactivity of metals versus non-metals. Okay, yung comparable reactivity nila with hydrogen, that is how they are listed here. Okay, so meaning to say, under metals, yung reactivity series on the left side, sa metals, since yung arrow is going up, increasing yung reactivity going up. So we could tell that lithium here would be the most reactive metal. Okay, most reactive siya compared to rubidium, followed by potassium, barium, calcium, so on and so forth. And gold here, since nasa bottom part siya, this is considered the least reactive. Okay, so that's how you identify if the single element given is more reactive than the other element that it tries to replace or displace. Okay, so let's try to have a specific example to better understand the application of this reactivity series. Okay, let's have sample problem 1. So the single element here is zinc. You identify, is it metal or non-metal? Zinc is, okay, this is, so you go ahead. Zinc is a metal. Okay, zinc is a metal. So if it is a metal, upon reacting to a compound cupric chloride, which do you think will it try to replace or displace? Is it copper or chlorine? Okay, so obviously it is. Sige, your turn. Application of the concept. Okay. So it will try to displace the copper portion of cupric chloride. But the question here, can we produce a product? Can zinc displace copper? You refer now to this reactivity series. Sige, try to answer. Can zinc displace copper based on the reactivity series? Yes or no? Kaya bang sipain ni zinc yung copper? Yes. Because look at the order. Zinc is more reactive than copper. So that's the use of this reactivity series. Okay, so you should familiar this order. Okay? So possible na kaya niyang sipain. Therefore, pag sipa niya sa copper, copper is now the single element. So we form on the product side a metal copper. Okay, listen. In the product, in forming or predicting the product, if you form a metal, any metals, they are stable in nature as monoatomic. So solid, kapag solid nga metal, okay, or any liquid, basta kay metal, ma-produce siya. In nature, they are stable in monoatom form. So you don't have to write any subscript there. Okay, so here, ako lang specify nga, it is a solid, a metallic copper. Okay, so again, they are stable in monoatom monoatomic form, no subscript written. Kasi monoatom. Okay, what's the other product? Diba? Yung position ni copper dyan, that will be replaced with zinc. So for you to identify the other product, you have to recall your knowledge on ionic formula. What's the ion form of zinc? Zinc is Zn2+. Chlorine, what is the ion form of chlorine? It's chloride, right? Then crisscross method. Crisscross method, you will produce the product, the other product, zinc chloride. Okay, so that's how you predict or write, yes, the products kapag single displacement. Sige, let's have another example. Zinc plus silver nitrate. So another single replacement type of reaction. You have a single element zinc, which is a metal. It tries to displace the metal portion of silver nitrate, which is obviously silver. Can zinc displace silver? Yes or no? Yes, it can displace silver. Going back to the reactivity series, zinc is on top of silver. So zinc is more reactive than silver. So kaya niyang i-displace, sipain yung silver, kaya yung silver ngayon, yung single element. And again, as a metal, in nature, in the environment, ang mga metal, monoatomic. Okay, monoatom sila. So just write its elemental symbol Ag. That's it. Okay? Plus, how do you write the other product? Diba? Ang magre-replace na sa pwesto dito is si zinc. So you extract the ion form of zinc. Zn2 plus, saan ba galing yung NO3? NO3 is nitrate. Nitrate is NO3 negative. Okay? Yes. So upon crisscross method, you will produce the other product, Zn, NO3 subscript of 2. Okay, so enclose in a parenthesis, di ba, kapag polyatom before writing subscript greater than 1. Okay, again, next, platinum plus silver nitrate. Platinum is also a metal. So it is also a metal, so it will attempt to displace silver. But the question here, can platinum displace silver, yes or no? That's your answer. No. Platinum is one of the least reactive metal based on this series. Therefore, no product. Just write no reaction. Okay, no reaction at all. So, no product. Walang mangyayaring any changes sa solution if you try to add a metal to a solution of silver nitrate. Walang impact, walang effect. Okay, wala kayong ma-observe na anything. So, no reaction. Okay? Next, lead is also a metal, reacting that to magnesium chloride. So, the metal portion of magnesium chloride is magnesium. Can lead displace magnesium? Okay. Yung lead andito sa taas ng hydrogen. Okay? And then yung magnesium is more reactive. Siya ang more reactive. Diba? Same with silver, more reactive yung silver. Kaya simply write no reaction. Okay, so that's how you predict product kapag ang gustong mag-displace is metal in a single displacement reaction. Okay, let's have examples naman na non-metal. Okay? Example na yung given in the chemical equation is non-metal as the single element. Non-metal as the single element. Okay, so this is considered a single element in the reactant, although it occur as diatomic molecule. Okay, but we consider this as element pa rin, di ba? When we define an element, it contains one type of atom. One type of atom lang naman yung present dito, and that is chlorine atom. Okay, atom of chlorine. It only occurs as diatomic molecule because again, these gases, take note, gases in nature occurs as diatoms. Okay, diatoms. So you recall all those diatomic molecules. Diba? I have mentioned seven most stable diatomic molecules. And those are gases. Hydrogen, oxygen gas, fluorine, bromine, iodine, so on and so forth. Okay? So they occur as diatoms kaya may nakalagay na subscript of 2. Okay, so never will happen na sa equation kapag may chlorine, walang subscript of 2. Okay, so dapat meron siyang subscript of 2 as a diatomic molecule. Now, in this given reaction, again, non-metal yung single element, reacting it to an ionic compound. So this time, it will attempt to displace the non-metal portion of ionic compound, potassium bromide. Okay, so ito yung non-metal portion. Kaya, in the reaction, it will try to displace bromine. Okay? Can chlorine replace bromine? Yes or no? Okay, based sa chemical reactivity series, yes. Kaya ni chlorine i-displace si bromine because more reactive yung chlorine. Okay? So, in the reaction, yung magiging single element ngayon is yung bromine gas. And again, bromine, di ba, is an example of diatomic molecule. So, lagyan nyo ng subscript of 2. Kasi yan yung stable form ng gases. Okay, plus, what's the other compound? So, extract natin yung ion form. Potassium yung una, di ba? Potassium man yung mauuna. Potassium, ion, then chlorine. Chlorine, chloride, ion. Okay, then crisscross method, the other product is potassium chloride. That's it. Okay, next. Okay, last example, under single displacement, look at the reaction. Yung unang sinulat sa reactant side is the compound, the ionic compound. Kasunod yung single element na chlorine gas, which occurs as diatomic molecule. Okay, so this is again a non-metal. So it will try to displace bromine in the compound sodium bromide. So possible din. Parehas lang naman yung example dito, chlorine versus bromine. So chlorine can displace bromine. So bromine now is the single element plus the other product is, try natin ha, Na plus, yung sodium ion is Na plus, and then chlorine ion is chloride. Crisscross method, the other product is sodium chloride. Okay, when you write products, okay lang yan mag-interchange. Okay lang mauna. You may write first potassium chloride, then plus bromine gas. Okay, the order could be in different ways. Okay lang. Okay, as long as tama yung products written. One is bromine gas, the other one is potassium chloride. Then for the second equation, one is bromine gas as the product, and then one is sodium chloride. Okay, so that's it. That's all about single displacement. So for you to predict, you have to know, practice how to predict products in a single displacement reaction because there will be questions later on no, sa examination ninyo wherein you will be asked to predict products for single replacement. Okay, so you should know this series, activity series of metals and also non-metals for you to know if the single element on the reactant side is more reactive ba or not. Okay,